conducting an interview with Mr. Joseph Horovitz. We're in London, and my name is Bea Lefkowitz. Can you tell us a bit about your family background, please?
Well, it was best described as a middle-class Jewish family, Orthodox Jewish background, but I suppose I would say Orthodox with a smile. You talked of the Anschluss, therefore it happened, it's quite important fact, my parents, mother and father, were by pure chance at that moment in Holland on a business trip. And therefore my father, who was in a sense a marked man, an important cultural entity who was Jewish, was a marked man. And they weren't there. And phone calls from wherever he was, perhaps in Amsterdam at the time, or perhaps he was already in Belgium visiting relatives, came through to say, whatever you do, leave Vienna and go west. It was March the 15th, was therefore a Tuesday. Hitler had marched in on the 13th, Sunday morning, the troops along the Ringstrasse. On the 15th in the evening, we went to the Südbahnhof, the southern railway station, with my paternal grandmother, my paternal aunt Bertha, her little boy aged 1, Ellie aged 9, me aged 11. Got on a train to Merano, where we arrived in the early hours of the morning of the 16th of March, Wednesday. And I know that because that's what it says in my passport. I remember being very upset and I wanted to take my stamp album. You know, the boy wants to take a stamp album, but one of my uncles in Vienna said that's not right. You must. Nobody takes a stamp album when they go skiing, because the idea was we were a family, young people with a grandmother going off on a skiing holiday. So it must look as though we're not emigrating. And a stamp album, so I was sorry about that. My father and mother had not been in Vienna at the time. He was quite often in London and had established this close relationship with the firm of George Allen and Unwin, particularly with the owner, who was Stanley Unwin, who later became Sir Stanley Unwin, knighted. And he established a kind of temporary office in the offices of Allen and Unwin in Museum Street. And he was used to staying in hotels in London and so on. And he took me, it was late at night on the 1st of May. Of course, we came by boat. Ostend, we came via Ostend. I was violently sick. It was the first time I'd seen the sea. I remember I was absolutely sick. And we arrived at night in that hotel somewhere in Bloomsbury. And I stayed there a night or two. My father put me into a fantastic establishment called Regent's Park School in Hampstead, in Maresfield Gardens. And that lady had somehow bought a large house, I don't know how, but maybe she borrowed money or something, in Maresfield Gardens, a few doors away, by the way, from where Sigmund Freud spent a few months of his late life. Some of the parents were not even in England yet, awaiting visas from wherever they were. Some of the parents, unfortunately, never arrived, got killed. Some came in the Kindertransport at the end of 1939. And this school somehow, with funds from God knows where, were harboring these children. Therefore, it was a place for me to start off, while my father was busy moving heaven and earth, you know, to get permission to stay in England and so on. This wasn't easy. I've been a professor at the Royal College of Music, on the staff, as it were, ever since 1961. I like teaching, and I think it's marvelous to be in touch with young people, young musicians.
What do you see as your most important contribution to musical life in England?
Well, I don't know what to say, because I'm supposed to be modest, no? I suppose young people know me by a cantata called Captain Noah and His Floating Zoo, which was a kind of a biblical oratorio in a humorous, jazzy kind of style, not pop, but like a musical comedy. And it's about 25 minutes or so, and it started out in 1970 more or less, and is still going quite strong, been sung literally by thousands of people, and exists in CD. The King's Singers have done it in a special version, King's Singers a cappella, with piano and drums and so on. A libretto by Michael Flanders, who is no longer with us, but well known for his At the Drop of a Hat with Flanders and Swan. And it was kind of a biblical oratorio in a popular style. It's in versions, in German version published, and in a Danish version, and in a Dutch version, and in a Swedish version. And there's an animated cartoon film which was Boxing Day special on television here, Granada Film Company, and there's been a mime, there's been a ballet. So I think, on the one hand, people who sing, not only children, adult choruses as well, but perhaps other people know me by signature tunes, by theme music for television. Rumpole of the Bailey, Search for the Nile, two big Shakespeare plays, the BBC, Twelfth Night and The Tempest, and I have a Tarzan film which I wrote the music for. He's swinging on the tree trunks and so on. So you see, it's a mixture of string quartets and ballets and film music and choral music and a lot of brass band music. My euphonium concerto is, in fact, I wrote the first full-blown euphonium concerto. In fact, a quartet of mine was premiered by the Amadeus Quartet we mentioned before, which was dedicated to another refugee, believe it or not, Sir Ernst Gombrich, the famous art historian, and that he was a family friend. My father, of course, Phaidon Press published all the books by Gombrich, and I was commissioned to write a string quartet for Gombrich, and Gombrich asked for it to be played by the Amadeus Quartet. So after many years of friendship between individual members of the Amadeus Quartet, eventually they premiered a work of mine and broadcast it on the BBC. The background, psychologically, was my memories of the emigration from Vienna. It's a very pure piece of music. It's very abstract, but it actually has overtones of a Viennese folk song, which emerged in the course of the composition, and I seized on that. I didn't plan it that way. And it became a kind of focal point in the middle of the quartet, and I used it as I went on writing the work, at which point I became conscious of a political content to this work, and it includes an actual quotation of a few bars from the Horst Wessel song, rather a bizarre and quite, in a way, frightening thing to put in. But I did that when I realized I was writing a political quartet, which was the last thing I wanted to do. In fact, the quartet tried to be descriptive of my feelings, of the thoughts and influence of Ernst Gombrich art books on the history of art. So it's a very far-fetched kind of influence, but it was a very real one.
Do you think your life would have been very different if you hadn't been forced to emigrate as a boy?
Must have been. I might have taken up music, and I don't know what music I would have written. Somebody brought that up not long ago, and I didn't have the answer. I can't possibly say, would I have written Viennese waltzes? No. Nobody writes Viennese waltzes now. But I might have become, I don't think I would have become a 12-tone composer. It's not my nature, I think. I have a feeling that I'm a British composer. I can't be an English composer because I'm not. I'm a Viennese-born composer who is a Jew by religion. I don't write what's called Jewish music because I don't know what that is. And I want to be thought of as a British composer.
My last question, whether you have a message for anyone who might watch this for younger generation.
You should find out who you are by asking yourself, what are my antecedents? Where do I come from? And then you will understand who you are. And then you will have the strength to cope with the problems that we all have to cope with. Because I know where I come from, and I'm lucky that I can remember.